So we are now about to start off with our first speaker, and he is going to take us on a little inspirational trip to China. Björn Ognibeni has over 15 years of experience as a digital consultant for all kinds of different companies, agencies, and brands. His work has really focused on what digitization means in terms of building relationships between companies and their customers, and how the design of products and business models is changing today. In 2012, Björn started the startup BuzzRank, which is a software as a service company that offers innovative social media analytics and content curational tools to its customers. And his latest project is called China Briefs.io, which he founded in May 2019 and really supports Western executives to understand and learn from the current developments in China. And that is exactly what Björn is going to help all of us to learn and understand today. He is going to be speaking about new retail versus omnichannels and what we can learn from digital China. Over to you, Björn.
Hello, Geraldine. Hello, Marcus. Good morning from Hamburg. And am I live? Yes, I probably am. What I want to talk to you about today is what we can learn from digital China, especially in the commerce space. And one of the things, one of the buzzwords in China for the last nearly 5 years was new retail. Yeah, the reinvention of retail channels. And if you start looking into this trend, you quickly realize that it sounds very much like what we think about omnichannel. Putting together online and offline commerce and channels, creating one consistent customer experience. That's what we would say omnichannel is, and that's what Chinese probably would say what new retail is. But it's the same idea, but the thinking behind it is totally different. Why is that? That's because we in the West, or in China, when you start thinking about new things, you start from the new and rethink the old completely. While we in the West actually think the other way around. We start from the old, and we take all our old restrictions with us. Yeah, when we start to think about new things, we always think within the box of our old restrictions. Very often we do, at least. And that very often leads to stagnation. Yeah, that means that even if we try to rethink things, they look old afterwards. Just one idea, you just talked very much about e-commerce, right? Think about Amazon for the last 20 years. Yeah, Amazon is one of the most innovative companies in the world. But if you look at the customer experience, at the experience of buying something actually on Amazon in 2000, 2010, and 2020, over the last 20 years, has this changed a lot? I would say not. I think you would be hard-pressed to find something that really changed. There are a lot of details that changed, and that shows that we are constantly optimizing things, but we are not rethinking them. And if you look at all these other stores, they more or less look the same. Yeah, it's something that we learned 20 years ago, how to do online commerce on the front-end side. And then we start optimizing, but we never really thought about redoing it. And what's missing from online commerce these days is still experience, excitement. Is it fun to buy something online? Usually it isn't. And that's different in China. In China, there's a big trend that's called shoppertainment, where you combine shopping and entertainment to create excitement, to create a real experience buying something online. One of the things or the ways you do this is by employing live shopping. And I brought with me a short clip that shows you how and what live shopping is and how it works. Just a second.
E-commerce has been very successful in the past 20 years, but it is still two-dimensional. With Alibaba's live streaming, you create a three-dimensional, live, interactive, mobile, and social shopping experience. Customer can say, I want to see the inside of the bag. Show me how many zippers there are. That is beyond anybody could have imagined 5 years ago. We believe live streaming is the future of retail and e-commerce. For American audiences, the way I describe live streaming is a combination of QVC plus Facebook Live plus the e-commerce platform, all roll into.
So just to summarize that, QVC, social media, and an e-commerce system together, that's what live shopping actually is. And that creates a totally new online shopping experience that's far away from everything that we have here. And it's something that's really, everyone in China uses this, even farmers on a farmer's market. Yeah, that's how a farmer's market looks these days. People are not selling their produce only to the people at the market, but also to people at their live streams. And that's really huge business. Yeah, Taobao Live, Alibaba's live platform, which is just one of many, generated 60 billion in GMV last year and probably more this year. And everybody, as I just said, is using us. The farmers that we just saw, but also local store owners, but also B2B companies. Yeah, they use live streaming from exhibitions where they stream from their booths, telling people about what they are presenting who are not at the exhibition themselves. And here you see how you can do omnichannel on a pragmatic way. Yeah, you have a physical retail outlet, and when it's closed, it turns into a live streaming studio. So that was one approach. The other approach is gamification. Yeah, using games, integrating games into the shopping experience. That's something that's also became pretty common in China. Like here, this is a Taobao Starcat game where you have something like a Tamagotchi experience. You take care of a little kitten, and by doing this, you earn coupons, better prices, stuff like this, but you also get a lot of fun. Yeah, that looks cute, but don't get this wrong. It's really serious business we're talking about here. Why is that? Because in China, if you get home at night, you not only get entertained by your TV, like watching your favorite Netflix show or whatever Netflix is in China. What you actually very often do is instead of watching TV, you go into your shopping app and get entertained there by the games, by the live streams, by following your KOL influencer star doing a live stream show, yeah, stuff like this. And that's actually pretty interesting for everybody who runs an online commerce store, right? Because all the KPIs that are relevant to us here too, like visit duration, returning visits, stuff like this, they actually go through the roof once you use these shoppertainment approaches successfully. And that's also the reason why everybody here is talking about this, why companies like Facebook, Instagram are providing live shopping experiences and services to their clients, but also brands are doing this. Like just today at night, it's at 8 p.m., Nivea will start their first live shopping show. Yeah, so this is a trend that's already started to become more relevant here in the West too. But very often we only focus on the feature and we don't really ask ourselves, why does this work in China? And one thing that we very often overlook is the part in the middle. Yeah, Facebook stands for social media, for a social experience. Yeah, QVC and e-commerce, okay, that's something that we can combine very easily. But the social experience, that's this thing that really drives the phenomenon in China and probably will drive them here too. And very often, what we are missing here is dialogue. Yeah, having a real chat experience, something what makes life really live, that you can have interaction with somebody. That's the reason why this is very often overlooked here. Is that dialogue for us very often, especially if we talk to our customer, if it's a service dialogue, everything is seen as a cost problem. Yeah, and we're trying to make this as less of a problem as possible. In China, dialogue very often is seen as a tool for building relationships. And that's why these services are so successful. It's a great way to build relationships. And also gamification. It's not an add-on that you put on a boring, otherwise boring shopping app, but something that is actually part of the whole user experience. Like here, you're seeing a quick clip of the process of the experience when you order a taxi through one of these gamified app user interfaces. Another interesting thing is immersive commerce, where you really try to combine gamification with the real shopping process. And there's also something that I want to show you. It's the Taobao Live game.
I live a virtual life where I can build a house, keep a pet, and interact with my friends' avatars. I want to dress up my avatar with the latest collections in a brand pavilion, like this yellow sweater from Acting Studio. And if I like how it looks on my avatar, I can purchase the item for myself seamlessly. I even picked this pair of jean shorts to complete my outfit. Brands can also develop branded mobile games within.
So basically what we're seeing here is omni-channel products. When we talk about omni-channel, we always just talk about the channel, but not about the products. Why not combine online and offline products? That's something that is also pretty successful in China. So what I would suggest, don't copy those trends from China, but understand them and then try to adapt them to our markets, to our culture and all our requirements. But because very often when you look at these trends, you ask yourself, will that work here? We have data protection. We have a lot of other things. We have different user patterns. Can we really use these Chinese thinking here in our markets? And the last example that I want to show you proves this, that it's actually possible. And that's Shein. Shein is a Chinese fashion startup that is not doing fast fashion or ultra fast fashion, but doing real-time fashion. And they are employing a trend that's also very huge in China that's called C2M, consumer to manufacturer. And that's a trend where the demand, the people who are buying products actually driving the production of it in real time. How does it work for the fashion industry? I just want to show you how does it work right now with our system here in the West. It's mostly driven by experience and hope. We have educated guesses who order products from the supply chain. They are produced and put into the shop. People are seeing this, and if it works well, then they are buying the stuff. You have reporting that says this worked, that doesn't, that drives more experience, and then next time you're probably or hopefully more successful than the other. The C2M model is a little different. It starts with lots of products in your online store, providing an offer to your customers, and these customers are interacting with these offers. And interacting means they are clicking, they are sharing, they are liking, they're putting it in the shopping basket, stuff like this. And this generates lots of data. And this data is analyzed by an AI, and this AI actually generates the order that gives this into the supply chain, and the production is then optimized. So only those products are going into production that are actually interesting for the customers. And Shein is doing this very well, and they are providing lots of products to their customers. Nearly 10,000 per day. New products are showing up in the Shein app. Very often they are not even produced. They are just in the app, and people can see if they like them or not. How successful is Shein with this? Last year, they did 10 billion in sales. So that's pretty successful, right? They are growing very fast. Will be very interesting how much revenue they will bring in this year. But the really interesting number is how big are their sales in China? They are actually zero. They don't sell anything in China. They are selling everything here in our markets. And that's a picture that I just took last day on my walk to the office, where I realized that Shein is buying out-of-home media in Hamburg downtown. So they are very active in the German market, but also internationally, because they have created in a very short time frame a really global brand, and that without any local presence. Yeah, they are interesting to Western teenagers, but also to wives in the Middle East. They all find their products on Shein, and they are all driven only by data and AI. And we can't go too much into detail here, but Shein also created a very social brand. Yeah, they really involved their customers through social media channels, through the use of Instagram-like features within their app. Yeah, that's also very interesting what they are doing there. And actually what Shein is doing is nothing special if you look at all these other Chinese digital companies who are doing the same. Yeah, they are thinking in ecosystems, they are actively involving their customers, and they have a very extensive data strategy. So if you compare this to other Chinese startups, it's probably not very interesting. What's interesting about Shein is the fact that they are using this business model in Western markets, where our companies are totally unprepared for this. And they are extremely successful with this. Shein nowadays is the most installed shopping app in our app stores. And if you look at daily active users, that's a light blue color here that Shein is. In the fashion scene, they are using all the attention span of consumers in the mobile apps. Yeah, so they're really crushing the competition. There are a lot of things that doesn't work well with Shein. That's also something you have to admit. And one of the things they are doing is they are copying our trends. Yeah, they are copying a lot of successful fashion brands in the West right now. And that's what the fashion industry is very often discussing about when they're talking about Shein. But what we have to realize is that what Shein is doing is actually just the start. Yeah, they have a self-learning system through the system that I just showed to you that gets better over time, and that changes also over time because they are learning a lot about customer preferences, and they are building lots of relationships also to their customers who want to become a fashion designer by themselves. Yeah, think a little bit like YouTube, how YouTube started with people uploading their own videos. And nowadays, YouTubers are really professional video artists or people who really create great video content to earn money with it. Shein maybe also go in that direction, giving people a platform to become a fashion designer of themselves. And then in a few years or months, let's see, in the near future, we probably will start talking about how Shein was able to set all those trends. They will no longer copy, but they will be the benchmark for us. Yeah. So to summarize, what can we learn from digital China? Use shopping experience, live shopping, and gamification? No, that's not what I wanted to tell you. Is rethinking everything. Yeah. The experience, technology, and also the involvement of customers, of your partners, thinking about ecosystems. That's what you can learn from China everywhere. And that's really interesting. And that's why it makes sense to study them. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that super inspiring talk, Björn. It was really exciting to listen to you now. And you've already received some love on Twitter, and we've also gotten some questions in. So thank you, dear guests, for sending those. Please keep them coming. So I'm going to allow myself a couple of questions before I pick those from the audience up, if that's okay. I have to admit, Björn, that in the beginning of your presentation, I got a little bit sad when you showed the farmers market, because I was thinking, well, we don't even have decent broadband connections in most of rural Germany. How are we going to have digital farmers markets happen? So perhaps a bit of infrastructure to catch up on before we can realize some of those examples that you just showed us. Do you think that Germany generally has a bit of catching up to do on that level before we can delve into some of these ideas that you just shared?
Yeah, probably on all levels, we are lacking a little bit in terms of digitalization. I mean, the pandemic showed us a lot of areas where we have lots of improvement to do. So,
yeah, definitely one of them. I would love for digitally connected farmers markets to happen in Germany. But what really got me thinking, and I really like that you had that point to say, don't copy, that would be such an irony anyway, this idea that, copying back from China when that's been the accusation that that's what they're doing to our tech industry for so long. But to really rethink this and how it fits into our consumer culture. So I have to admit, I only know China from documentaries and talks such as yours, or speaking to people from there. I have the impression that consumption has a very high ranking in Chinese culture overall. And I'm wondering how some of the things that you shared can relate back to our consumer culture, in particularly as we're trying to move into a little bit of this less is more mindset.
Yeah, I mean, right now, China probably still has a lot of catching up to do. Yeah, we have been consuming for like 40, 50 years. And all the stuff that we are talking about now is something that just became available in China for like 10, 15, 20 years, something like this. So that's the reason why Chinese are way more into consuming and buying stuff than we are, maybe. But what's interesting is that China also has a lot of sustainability in their mind. That's something that actually is also on the mind of Chinese consumers, at least in the bigger cities. I just saw an interesting stat that the Chinese are way more ready to pay for sustainable products than we in the West are. So that's probably something that might also drive trends from China that we can adapt.
Super interesting to hear.
More sustainable. Sorry?
That's super interesting to hear what you just shared, because I think that's a perspective that is often not highlighted here in the media, and so maybe not as seen. And it kind of struck me as well that some of the examples that you shared, as in the sort of production on demand in the fashion sector, I know mostly from startups here that also have a very sustainable mindset. So, for instance, I just recently talked to a startup that were 3D knitting garments to make sure that they do them on demand, ready to fit the size of their customer, and just avoid producing any kind of waste, whether it's industrial waste or having storage space waste. So how do you think some of these ideas, like that you presented also in regard to Shein, can be adapted in terms of sustainability and creating new sustainable business models?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because usually when you talk about a company like Shein, everybody's normal response is, how can this be sustainable? Yeah, producing all these products. The interesting thing is they are not producing all these products. They are just showing up in catalogs, and they are only producing what people are ready to buy. And that actually helps sustainability. Yeah, it's an interesting fact here that they are probably doing this to save costs. It's very cost efficient to only produce stuff that you actually sell and not throw away. What usually Western brands do, I think, is like 30, 40% of the stuff that they're actually producing is something that gets burned because people are not buying it. And if you can reduce this, you help your bottom line, but you also make your brand more sustainable. And I think that's also something that this C2M trend, the consumer to manufacturer trend, that's mostly employed to the fashion industry right now, probably will also over time come to other industries as well.
Yeah, and then of course it gets really interesting to think about decentralized production mechanisms and how new technology in that area will come into play as well. I'd like to ask you some of the questions that have come in from the audience. We have a two-part question that came from Gavin, which is, A, how do you solve the fundamental issue of ordering the correct size of a product? And followed up by the question that he can see the live stream helping with the issue of establishing the build and quality meets of the customer's needs. The question is, does anyone gather the dimensions of what people bought and what best fitting and suits your avatar for upselling? Sorry, I hope that came across well. I just read it out as Gavin posted it.
I didn't really understand the question. What was the first one?
I think the first one is, and I don't want to answer this for you, Björn, but how do you get over the fundamental issue of ordering the correct size? So especially if you produce things on demand, how do you make sure you don't have to sort of send the same product back and forth to make sure the right size gets to the customer?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question, and I think here Shein has probably the same problem as all other brands too, because you only have these 5 standard sizes. It's also something that a lot of fashion brands are working on, to provide their products in more than just the standard sizes.
And this is, of course, sorry to cut in, but where AI also comes in. As you mentioned earlier, sort of AI is helping Shein design. I also recently met a startup that helps fitting. So sort of your virtual mirror, and with the help of AI to make sure you really order the right thing that fits you before you order it. So I'm sure that AI is going to have a huge impact in this area as well.
Yeah, but that's also a focus that probably every fashion brand and every e-commerce store has, to lower the return rates of the products that they are getting back. And so that's also a good way to bring sustainability and earning money together.
Yeah.
What was the second question?
The second question, I have to admit, I'm not quite sure with the phrasing either. I think it's about gathering data about what people bought, what's best fitting them, and also best fitting their avatar. So perhaps also the intersection of your virtual environments that you're shopping for and your physical ones.
Yeah, what might be possible is that you are creating an avatar that's an exact replica of your body, and then you can buy something for this avatar, and if that fits your avatar, that probably also fits yourself. That might be an approach. That's something that actually there's a Berlin company called Nexa who is working a little bit on this together with H&M.
Mm-hmm. I would like to get back to the topic that you spoke about, multidirectionality and dialogue, because we also have an interview coming up on conversational commerce. So that's another maybe cultural topic where there's perhaps a bit of a difference of how the Chinese customer wants to be approached and the European customer wants to be approached. How do you see companies working more with this multidirectionality and sort of connecting with their customers as co-designers or in dialogue in different ways?
Yeah, I hope that this will get a trend that companies are employing here. Because as I mentioned in the presentation, right now, all the interaction with the customer is always seen from a cost perspective. Yeah, you have to be efficient, you have to be short, quick. Basically, you're opening a ticket that has to be closed as quickly as possible. That's the approach that you usually have when we think about customer dialogue. We don't think that much about involving customer into what we are doing as a brand or as a company. Yeah, that's not very often really something that we think about. And that's something that in China, a lot of companies are really using all the knowledge that the customers have. How can we employ this in our system? Yeah, through co-creation. In China, you also have influencers. In China, they are called KOLs, key opinion leaders, and very often they sell their own products, and they develop it together with their customers or with their fans, actually. In a dialogue, yeah, and they are asking what they would be interested in, and then we go back to the C2M model. They are producing something that their customers are actually requesting. So I'm not sure how well we will do this. It will be interesting to see how these live shopping channels that we are setting up now everywhere, how much they are really employing dialogue as a tool to drive the adoption of these channels.
Thank you, Björn. One very tiny, maybe you can give me a very short answer to the question that Olaf raised. What about B2B? Does all of this apply also as trends for B2B? Because we've been talking mainly about B2C here.
Actually, in China, there is not much difference between B2B and B2C communication. If you, in China, you have all your communication going through WeChat, your private WeChat account, which is like a little bit like a private WhatsApp account. And that also drives B2B sales. That's pretty interesting. And the other thing is, as I shown in the live streaming part of the presentation, also B2B companies are using live streaming to streaming from the booth at the big industry fair where they're showing their products. So yeah, most of the stuff that we are talking in B2C is also something that you can also use for B2B products. And just one last thing. It's very interesting to follow what luxury brands are doing in China in terms of using all these digital channels. And very often you read about people suggesting that B2 brands should follow what luxury brands are doing, because luxury brands are also very relationship driven, as B2B tends to be.
Thank you so much, Björn, for these incredible insights from what's happening in e-commerce in China. I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much for joining the program.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Our